What if three ordinary-looking British 2-pence coins could tell the story of more than 2 decades of British coinage? One of these coins comes from the very beginning of decimal currency in Britain, another was struck during the late 1980s, and the third comes from the early 1990s. At first glance, they may look almost the same, but their dates tell 3 very different stories. Today we are looking at 3 British 2-pence coins dated 1971, 1988, and 1993. These coins may be sitting in an old collection, a drawer, a coin jar, or even an inherited box. Before you spend them or put them away, take a closer look because the date, condition, design, and any unusual features can all affect their collector interest. Let us begin with the 1971 British 2-pence coin. This is the oldest coin in the group, and it is historically important because 1971 was the year Britain introduced decimal currency. This major change became known as decimal day. Britain moved away from the old system of pounds, shillings, and pence and introduced the decimal system that is still used today. The 1971 2p coin therefore belongs to one of the most important moments in modern British currency history. Millions of people had to learn a completely new system of money. New decimal coins entered circulation, and the 2p became one of the familiar denominations of the new currency. On the reverse of the coin, we can see the traditional crown Tudor rose design, along with the denomination, 2 pence and the large number 2. On the obverse is the portrait of Queen Elizabeth II, together with the inscription identifying the monarch and the United Kingdom. Because the 1971 coin is connected to the beginning of decimal currency, it is naturally interesting to collectors. However, it is important to understand that historical importance does not automatically mean that every 1971 2p coin is extremely valuable. Many examples were produced, and ordinary circulated coins can still be relatively common. The condition of the coin is extremely important. A coin that has spent decades in circulation may have scratches, marks, worn details, and darkened surfaces. Another coin with the same date may have been protected in a collection and could have much sharper details. This difference can affect collector interest and value. Now let us move to the 1988 British 2-pence coin. This coin was produced 17 years after the introduction of decimal currency. By this time, the decimal system was no longer new. The 2p coin had become a normal part of everyday British life. People used these coins in shops, carried them in their pockets, placed them in jars, and sometimes forgot about them for decades. The coin still carried the familiar Tudor rose design on the reverse and the portrait of Queen Elizabeth II. On the obverse, the 1988 coin is interesting because it represents a different generation of British coinage compared with the 1971 example. When you place the 2 coins next to each other, the design may appear familiar, but the dates show how British currency continued through different decades. This is one of the reasons collectors enjoy comparing coins from different years. The design may remain similar, but the history behind each date is different. Now we come to the 1993 British 2-pence coin. This coin is the youngest of the 3. By 1993, British decimal currency had been in circulation for more than 20 years. The 2p coin had become a well-established part of everyday life. Like the other coins, the 1993 example features the Tudor rose on the reverse and the portrait of Queen Elizabeth II on the obverse. But again, the date makes it different from the 1971 and 1988 coins. When we look at all 3 coins together, 1971, 1988, and 1993, we are looking at more than just 3 pieces of metal. We are looking at a timeline of British currency. The first coin takes us back to the beginning of decimalization. The second shows Britain during the late 1980s. The third takes us into the early 1990s. But now comes the question every collector wants to know. How much could these coins be worth today? The answer depends on several important factors. The date is only one part of the story. The condition, rarity, minting errors, varieties, and collector demand can all influence value. A normal circulated example of these dates is generally not automatically worth hundreds or thousands of dollars simply because it is old. Many ordinary examples were produced and remain available. However, coins with genuine mint errors or unusual varieties can be much more interesting. This is why you should always inspect your coins carefully. Look at the date. Examine the lettering. Check the Tudor rose design. Look at the portrait. Inspect the edge. If something appears unusual, compare it with a normal example. A genuine mint error can sometimes make a coin much more desirable. For example, a coin may have been struck off-center, have a noticeable doubled design, or show another unusual feature created during the minting process. But be careful. Not every damaged coin is a mint error. Scratch caused by a sharp object is not the same as a minting error. A dent caused by years of use is not automatically rare. This is why careful examination is so important. The 1971 coin deserves special attention because it comes from the beginning of decimal currency. It is the oldest coin in this group and represents a major change in British financial history. Imagine the excitement and confusion people experienced when the entire currency system changed. For generations, people had used pounds, shillings, and pence. Suddenly, a new decimal system was introduced. New coins entered circulation, including the 2p coin. The 1971 date therefore connects this small coin to a huge moment in British history. The 1988 coin tells a different story. By then, decimal currency was familiar, and the coin had become part of everyday life. It represents the late 1980s, a period completely different from the early 1970s. The 1993 coin takes us even further forward. It represents the early 1990s and shows that the same basic denomination continued to be used across different decades. This is what makes coin collecting so fascinating. A coin does not need to be extremely rare to be historically interesting. Sometimes the story behind a coin is just as important as its market value. Many people make the mistake of looking at an old coin and asking only one question: is it worth a fortune? But collectors often ask many more questions. When was it made? Why was it produced? How many were made? What was happening in the country at that time? How many examples still survive? Is this particular coin in better condition than most others? These questions help collectors understand the real importance of a coin. The three coins shown here also demonstrate how condition changes over time. Even when coins have the same denomination and similar designs, their surfaces can look completely different after years of circulation. Some coins develop natural toning. Others become darker. Some show scratches and marks. Some remain surprisingly bright. These differences can help tell the story of where a coin has been. One very important piece of advice is, do not clean old coins aggressively. Many people believe that a shiny coin must be more valuable, so they polish their coins. Unfortunately, cleaning can leave permanent scratches and remove the original surface that collectors may prefer. If you want to examine a coin, use good lighting and a magnifying glass. Handle it carefully by the edges. Look for unusual features without damaging the surface. For the 1971, 1988, and 1993 British 2p coins, the most important thing is to understand the difference between a normal circulated coin and a truly unusual example. A normal circulated coin may have only modest collector value, but if one of these coins has a recognized rare variety, a genuine mint error, or exceptional condition, the situation can be very different. That is why you should never make a final judgment from a photograph alone. If the coin appears to have something unusual, a serious collector or professional grading service may be able to examine the coin more carefully. The biggest lesson from these three coins is simple. Never judge a coin only by its age. The 1971 coin is older than the 1988 and 1993 coins, but age alone does not guarantee a huge value. A newer coin with a rare error could potentially be more desirable than an older common coin. Similarly, a damaged old coin may be worth less than a younger coin in excellent condition. So if you have a British 2p coin from 1971, 1988, or 1993, take a moment to examine it carefully. Check the date and study the design. Look for unusual doubling, strange shapes, missing details, or anything that appears different from a normal example. And most importantly, remember that these coins are pieces of history. The 1971 coin takes us back to the beginning of decimal currency. The 1988 coin represents Britain during the late 1980s. The 1993 coin carries us into the early 1990s. Together, these three coins create a small timeline of British monetary history. They may have once been used for everyday purchases. They may have passed through countless hands. They may have been carried in pockets, stored in purses, or forgotten in drawers. And now, decades later, they are being examined by collectors. That is the magic of coin collecting. A small coin can connect you to a much larger story. So, are these three coins automatically worth a fortune? No, but that does not mean they should be ignored. Their value depends on their exact condition and whether they contain any special variety or genuine minting error. The 1971 example is particularly interesting because of its connection to decimal day and the beginning of Britain's modern decimal currency system. The 1988 and 1993 examples show how the same denomination continued through later decades. If you find one of these coins, do not immediately spend it and do not clean it. First, inspect it carefully. Compare it with other examples. Look at the details. Sometimes the most important discovery is hidden in a small feature that most people never notice. And remember, the true value of a coin is not always visible at first glance. A coin that looks ordinary to one person may be historically fascinating to another. A coin that appears old may turn out to be common, and a coin that looks almost identical to thousands of others may contain a rare error that makes it much more interesting. So before you spend your old British 2-pence coins, check the date, check the condition, and check the details, because you never know what story your coins may be carrying. By 1988, decimal currency was no longer new. The British public had been using decimal coins for many years, and the 2p coin had become a normal part of everyday life. The coin still featured the familiar Tudor rose design. The denomination remained the same. The Queen's portrait remained on the obverse. But historically, this coin belonged to a completely different period. The world of 1988 was very different from the world of 1971. Technology was changing. Home computers were becoming more common. Music, fashion, television, and popular culture were all different. Yet the humble 2p coin continued to pass from one person to another. A coin like this could have been used in a shop during the late 1980s. It could have been placed in a cash register, carried home, saved in a jar, or forgotten in a drawer. Today, the coin may look ordinary, but it represents everyday life during a different generation. When collectors compare a 1971 coin with a 1988 coin, they are not simply comparing two dates. They are comparing two different eras of British history. The 1971 coin represents the beginning of decimal currency. The 1988 coin represents a time when decimal money had already become familiar. This is why collecting coins by date can be so interesting. Even when the design remains similar, the story behind each year can be completely different. The 1993 British 2-pence coin. The third coin in our group is dated 1993. This coin is younger than the 1971 and 1988 examples, but it is still more than 3 decades old. By 1993, the 2p coin had already been part of British life for more than 20 years. A person who was young when the first decimal coins appeared in 1971 could now be an adult with a family of their own. The 1993 2p coin therefore represents another stage in the history of British decimal currency. The design remains familiar. The Tudor rose is still present on the reverse, and the portrait of Queen Elizabeth II appears on the obverse. But once again, the date changes the story. When you place all 3 coins together, 1971, 1988, and 1993, you can see a timeline. The first coin takes us back to the beginning of decimal currency. The second takes us into the late 1980s. The third takes us into the early 1990s. 3 small coins. 3 different dates. More than 20 years of history. Why condition matters. Now let us talk about one of the most important subjects in coin collecting. Condition. Many people believe that if a coin is old, it must automatically be valuable. But this is not true. Age is only one factor. A coin's condition can make a huge difference. Collectors often look at how much wear the coin has experienced. They examine the highest points of the design, the lettering, the portrait, the edges, and the overall surface. A coin that has been heavily used may have scratches, dense discoloration, and worn details. A coin that has been carefully stored may have much sharper details. The difference between an ordinary circulated coin and an exceptional high-grade coin can be significant. This is why the coins in your collection should be handled carefully. Try not to touch the main surfaces unnecessarily. Hold coins by their edges whenever possible. And one of the most important rules is, do not clean your old coins with household products. Many people think that a shiny coin must be more valuable, so they use polish, chemicals, or rough materials to remove dark marks. Unfortunately, this can damage the original surface. Collectors often prefer coins that have their natural surfaces. A cleaned coin may look bright, but the scratches caused by cleaning can reduce its appeal. So if you find an old 2p coin, leave it as it is and examine it carefully. Could these coins have errors? Now we come to one of the most exciting parts of coin collecting, mint errors. During the production of coins, mistakes can sometimes happen. A coin may be struck slightly off-center. A die may become damaged. A design may be doubled. A part of the coin may not strike correctly. These unusual coins can attract collector attention. But it is important to understand the difference between a genuine mint error and damage that happened after the coin entered circulation. For example, if a coin has a scratch caused by a sharp object, that is normally damage. If a coin has a dent from being dropped, that is normally damage. But if the unusual feature was created during the minting process, it may be a genuine error. This is why collectors compare unusual coins with normal examples. If you think your 1971, 1988, or 1993 2p coin looks unusual, examine it carefully under good lighting. Look at the date. Look at the lettering. Look at the Tudor rose. Look at the number 2. Look at the Queen's portrait. Check the edge of the coin. If something appears genuinely different, it may deserve further investigation. But remember, not every strange-looking coin is rare. Sometimes age, circulation, scratches, and damage can create unusual appearances. What about the value? Now let us answer the question that most people are waiting for. How much are these 1971, 1988, and 1993 British 2p coins worth? The honest answer is that the value depends on the exact condition and characteristics of each coin. A normal circulated example is generally not automatically worth hundreds or thousands simply because it is old. Many ordinary coins from these years were produced and remain available. However, coins with special features can be more interesting. A rare variety, a genuine mint error, or a coin in exceptional condition may attract more attention from collectors. This is why it is dangerous to give one fixed value to every coin with the same date. One 1971 coin may be heavily worn. Another may be in excellent condition. One 1988 coin may be completely normal. Another may have an unusual error. One 1993 coin may have been damaged after leaving the mint. Another may have a genuine production error. The date alone cannot tell the whole story. The realistic value of an ordinary circulated coin is usually modest, while special examples can be worth more, depending on collector demand and the exact feature involved. So if you see someone online claiming that every old British 2p coin is worth thousands, be careful. Always look for evidence. Ask why the coin is valuable. Is it rare? Is it a genuine error? Is it in exceptional condition? Is there strong collector demand? These are the questions that matter. The history behind the 3 dates. Let us now look at the 3 dates as a timeline. In 1971, Britain introduced decimal currency. This was a major change in the country's monetary system. The 2p coin was part of that new system. In 1988, the decimal system had been established for many years. The 2p coin was now a familiar part of daily life. In 1993, the coin continued into another generation. The design remained recognizable, but the world around it continued to change. When you look at these 3 coins together, you can see how a single denomination continued through different periods of history. The coins may appear similar, but each date gives them a different historical identity. Why collectors like old coins? Coin collecting is not only about money. Of course, value is exciting. Finding a rare coin can be thrilling, but many collectors enjoy coins because of the stories they carry. A coin can show the history of a country. It can reveal changes in monarchs, designs, metals, denominations, and political events. A small coin can connect you with people who lived decades before you. The 1971 coin is especially interesting because it connects directly to the introduction of decimal currency. The 1988 coin connects us to the late 1980s. The 1993 coin connects us to the early 1990s. Each coin is like a tiny time capsule. What should you do if you find one? If you find a British 2p coin from 1971, 1988, or 1993, the first thing you should do is look at it carefully. Do not immediately spend it. Do not polish it. Do not throw it away. Check the date. Examine the surface. Look at the design. Look for unusual details. If you have several examples, compare them side by side. Sometimes comparison makes unusual features easier to notice. Use a magnifying glass if necessary. Good lighting can reveal details that are difficult to see with the naked eye. And if you believe the coin has a genuine error or rare variety, consider having it examined by someone experienced in British coins. The biggest mistake people make. The biggest mistake people make is believing that a coin is valuable simply because it is old. Another mistake is believing that a coin is worthless simply because it looks common. The truth is usually more complicated. A common coin in poor condition may have little value beyond its denomination. But a coin with a rare variety or genuine mint error can be much more interesting. The only way to know is to examine the coin properly. That is why every old coin deserves at least a quick inspection. You never know what detail may be hiding in plain sight. Final thoughts. So, what makes these three British 2p coins interesting? The 1971 coin represents the beginning of Britain's decimal currency system. The 1988 coin represents the late 1980s, when decimal currency had become a normal part of everyday life. The 1993 coin represents the early 1990s, and another stage in the story of British coinage. Together, these three coins create a timeline covering more than 2 decades. They may not all be rare. They may not all be worth a fortune. But they are still pieces of history. And if one of them has a genuine minting error, a recognized variety, or exceptional condition, its collector interest could be much greater. So the next time you find an old British 2p coin, don't judge it too quickly. Look at the date. Look at the condition. Look at the details. Look for anything unusual. And remember, the real value of a coin is not always visible at first glance. A coin that looks ordinary may have an interesting story. A coin that looks old may be common. And a coin that looks almost identical to thousands of others may contain one small feature that makes it special. That is what makes coin collecting so exciting. You never know what you might discover. So before you spend your old 2p coins, take a closer look, because sometimes the smallest details can make the biggest difference. If you enjoy discovering old British coins, rare varieties, valuable errors, and hidden treasures, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Keep checking your coins, keep learning, and never ignore an old coin just because it looks ordinary.